let's talk more about Elon Musk's appointments, because I think these are fascinating, Benedict. Elon Musk is going to basically share this job with the co-leader of the new Department of Government Efficiency, the former Republican presidential candidate, top leading businessman, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's had some interesting ideas over the years. They're going to be outside of sort of the federal government, so they don't have to declare their interests, give up their business interests, and they don't have to go through congressional approval and all of those things. Basically, they can just stand outside government. This is Donald Trump this is him draining the swamp, isn't he? Cutting through the blob?
Yeah, I think he has regrets about his first term, where actually he didn't achieve very much domestically. Certainly not.
He
as
wasn't
much
prepared for government. He didn't think he'd win.
He wasn't. He didn't know what was going to happen, and ultimately it turned into a bit of a vanity project. Whereas this time around, I think he's a little. This may sound odd. I think he's a little more humble in terms of actually what his record is, and he understands that if he is going to have a legacy, and also if the party is going to win the next presidential election, there needs to be tangible improvements. And also, he's inheriting a real mess of a situation, which can be very bad, as Joe Biden found out, but also is a fantastic opportunity to turn the page on a lot of the nonsense that's gone before, and actually that he really could be viewed as a transformational president if he gets these appointments right.
This is the thing. Again, everyone knows my views here. I was not a fan of this guy. 2016, 2010, wouldn't have voted for him. This time around, I said before the election, I thought he was probably going to win, and I thought that, I thought that if I was an American voter, I would have voted for him, just simply because I think that the Democrats are stark staring insane now, and I think that so many things that are wrong in our country are even worse in America. Whether it's the trans stuff, whether it's that net zero mandate, the huge money that goes into that, the bloated bureaucracy, the huge amount of debt, and just huge amount of bureaucracy that is just deeply, deeply corrupt and money sort of grabbing, and holds back people from living their lives, doing stuff that would not harm other people. Government shouldn't get involved if it doesn't harm other people.
It's ironic that everybody was so keen to shout he's a fascist about Donald Trump, because if he is a fascist, well, the Democrats for the last few years, they've gone full Soviet Union. So we do really have both sides.
And who ended up killing the most people? The communists.
In terms of the mind-bendingness of their ideas, actually a lot of what the Democrats have tried to push is insane. And that is why they lost. That's why they lost the popular vote. It's why they are down with minorities and all sorts of things. That is ultimately what it is down to. But it's fascinating, actually, that he now finds himself with all of these branches of government to get things done, because this is very unusual. The last time I think that anybody was in this sort of position was Barack Obama, and to be fair, he didn't actually get very much done. So I think what you're going to see is a real different tack from the previous Donald Trump administration. This is going to be less about the Donald Trump show. There's still going to be a lot of that. His ego requires a lot of this. But Henry Kissinger said about Donald Trump after he won the first election, whether he knows it or not, he's somebody at the crux of a moment in American history, and he may be the one to change an awful lot of things.
Absolutely. And I think he could be he really could be a great president. I mean, the only thing is, he's often what he says and what he does are very different. He seems to have some sort of more sensible people around him. We've got, certainly, his chief of staff is a woman who's, got a lot of credentials, knows how to do stuff. One of the other appointments that everyone's getting their knickers in a twist about is the appointment of the new Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Now, in America, it's very different from how we appoint people here. So you're an elected member of Parliament here. So you don't have any particular expertise, and it's perfectly normal for someone not to have been a military man or woman who serves as Defence Secretary, etc., etc. But in America, the cabinet is largely supposed to be, experts. But often they're not experts. It's something they've got an interest in. He's appointed Peter Hegseth. Now, the claim is constantly, well, he's just a Fox News anchor, like a part-time anchor on the Fox News station. But actually, this is a man who served 20 years in the military. He has two of the most, true bronze medals for bravery. Served in Iraq, Afghanistan. He also went to Princeton and Yale, two of the top universities, not just in America, but in the world. He then worked on Wall Street. Bear Stearns. I mean, he's a sharp cookie, this guy. He then set up an organisation after leaving the military. In fact, I believe he's still serving. I think he's still in the reserves as a major. But he set up an organisation helping veterans. He may well be a very, very, very good
You have Philip Ingram on this show fairly regularly. Would you just sort of box him as just as a contributor, a media contributor? Obviously not. You know, that he brings things to the table because of his years of experience in other very relevant fields. That's how this individual has managed to become, amongst other things, a Fox News contributor. You know, he wouldn't have been able to do this if he didn't have a fantastic CV. I know that people in this country, they don't watch Fox, and it's very easy to sort of think, oh, well, it's very tub-thumping, it's all a bit conspiratorial. But actually, rather a lot of the people on Fox are very impressive individuals in their own right.
Yeah.
People like Brett Baer or Megyn Kelly back in the day, actually, they are very good at what they do.
Yeah.
You don't get to that position in the American media ecosystem by being a half-wit. This person, I wait and see actually how good he is at the job. It's going to be very interesting to see how America's foreign policy changes. I think there is going to be a pivot away from Ukraine, but it doesn't look like it will be away from Israel, because I think this administration is going to be very hard on Iran in particular, so a lot more support for Israel. But we wait and see, ultimately. And, you know, all these other sort of areas, these changes that are being made.
Yeah.
The key thing I would say is this administration is going to go very hard, very fast to try to make a lot of changes and undo a lot of things that have happened.
And do them very quickly. Well, I'm very hopeful about his appointment to the Secretary of State. It looks like it's going to be Marco Rubio. I used to deride him, Little Marco. I mean, he's been rude about everybody, hasn't he?
Yes.
But very staunchly pro-Israel. There's a wonderful post I retweeted yesterday where this is a man who's just literally going, you know, something, aren't you worried about, you know, children dying in Gaza, but, you know, the pink-haired people? And he's like, you know, yeah, I mean, it's 100% Hamas's fault. I want Hamas destroyed. I'm on the Israel side. I mean, yeah, I'm literally like cheering on it. He goes, and post that. Put it on. I want people to know. But also we got the ambassador, the US ambassador to the UN and to Israel, both very, very short. We are going to see some fiery exchanges at the UN. These are people who are not going to just go, oh, I want to be diplomatic. They are going to be pushing American strategic interests. And by the way, that includes our strategic interest, which is for Israel to do well.
I would say this reflects on why ultimately Israel has conducted the war in the way that it has, because actually Netanyahu, I suspect, knew or thought himself that Trump would win, that there was very high likelihood that he would win, and that once that happened, actually support for Israel would massively increase from the US government. What I would say, though, is I think you're now going to see a lot of manoeuvring from certain Arab states to try to bring this to a head, because they don't actually want this to carry on going, and also they want to throw their weight around a little bit. They want to have their say. If it's going to be isolation for Iran on the international stage, they're fine with that, but there's opportunities there politically to manoeuvre. So the Gulf states in particular, I think you'll see a lot of arm twisting, a lot of they're going to break ranks. They're going to say things that are perhaps a little bit more pro bringing the war to an end than they have up to now, because frankly, by their standards, they've been rather placid. I think you'll hear a lot of that rhetoric ramped up the more that it seems like Israel has carte blanche. I think it's very interesting.
Well, I'm wondering if we need to bring in Elon Musk to help sort out the NHS. That would be good, would it not? Because Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has been giving a speech in front, rather bravely, in front of NHS chiefs to basically say, you know, you're not going to get your pay rises, you're not going to get your bonuses, you're not going to even keep your jobs if you don't deliver on waiting lists, and that is the crucial thing. And fascinatingly, what I find amazing is, A, why was this not always the case? If you don't do the job you're paid a six-figure salary for, and people die as a result, which is what happens when people don't get operations and treatments in time. It's what is happening right now, that you should lose your job. I mean, like, duh. Like, yeah, of course that should be what should happen. Who didn't think that was a good idea? How dare you be a useless NHS hospital manager who delivers slower waiting times than another neighbouring hospital because you're useless at your job? How dare you take taxpayers' money and basically allow people to die because you're rubbish at your job, but you want to pay your mortgage and put your kids through private school? I mean, frankly, you know, beep you, as I say. I mean, this is immoral. If you're not good at this, go and work in a paper factory. Go and do something that isn't about saving lives. You're not in the right job. And this is the key thing for me. It's like, this should be so obvious, but we've already had the likes of the NHS Confederation, others already bleating about, it's, you know, this is terrible, you know, because people, if we get targets and league tables, then people are going to be motivated to do the wrong things. Like, oh my God, your grown-ups paid a huge salary. Some of you earn more than the Prime Minister. Do the job you're paid to do. Stop bleating about it. You've got enough money, you've got enough staff. Get the job done.
Also, though, frankly, what does it say about these people that their response is to say, well, if you do this, people might be forced to cut corners and not do their jobs properly? At which point the government should surely be turning around and going, is that right? Well, would you like to talk us through your thought process there, seeing as you're the voice of experience on this?
Yeah.
What corners would you cut? What sort of things might you be doing? Because honestly, to take that attitude to say that this is basically the culture, I don't think that they're exactly saying the sensible thing.
They're not really bigging up their own people, are they, really?
Well, if they were smarter, perhaps the NHS would be being run better. Perhaps this is rather emblematic of why things aren't going very well.
And we're told they have to pay private sector salaries because they have to compete with the private sector for the best people. Well, if you've really got the best people, then why does he even need to say this? I would love to hear your thoughts on both of these big stories. 0344 499 1000. Health Secretary saying that NHS chiefs will be sacked if they don't cut hospital waiting times, but also your reaction to that and your reaction to Elon Musk getting in that job. Just going to bring you some breaking news, 2 bits of breaking news actually. The actor Timothy West very sadly has died peacefully in his sleep, aged 90. He was with his family and friends. A statement from the family has said he's known for numerous roles in television and theatre. You'll have seen him in virtually everything you've ever seen. Some of the key roles a lot of people remember, he starred as Eric Babbage in Coronation Street, as Stan Carter in EastEnders, and he was in the sitcom Not Going Out as well. But he was just in huge numbers of roles over the years. But also news coming out of court now. This ongoing court case, obviously involving the case of murder case against the father of Sarah Sharif. This is the taxi driver Irfan Sharif. He, along with his wife Binesh Batul and his brother Faisal Malik, are all on trial, accused of the murder of Irfan Sharif's 10-year-old daughter. They, of course, deny murder, but under cross-examination, Sharif, the father, has told jurors today he takes, quote, full responsibility for the death of his daughter. As his wife sobbed in the dock at the Old Bailey today, he had sought to blame his wife for the murder of his daughter, or the killing of his daughter. But today he has told jurors, I accept every single thing. Of course, Sarah was found dead at the family home in Surrey last August after the defendants fled to Pakistan. She had suffered a huge number of injuries, including human bite marks, iron burns, and had been beaten to death. So absolutely horrific story there, but a murder trial in which one of the people pleading not guilty saying, I accept every single thing, and takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter. Obviously, that case is ongoing. We're not able to discuss any more details of that. But in case you just tuned in, just to let you know, at 2 o'clock today, the suspect in the Southport stabbings case from July, Axel Ruda Cubana, he is going to be appearing by video link at Liverpool Crown Court today at a plea and trial preparation hearing. He faces 3 charges of murder, 10 charges of attempted murder, 1 charge possession of knife, all relating to that incident in Southport on the 29th of July. He's also since been charged with possession of ricin, a biological toxin, and also possession of a file, the Al-Qaeda training manual, which is contrary to the Section 58 of the Terrorism Act of 2000. We understand the families of victims of that stabbing will be attending court today. The suspect in that case will be attending via video link at Liverpool Crown Court at 2 o'clock. We'll bring you the latest on that as and when it happens. Benedict Spence, let me just go back to another story. We did talk a little bit earlier about Keir Starmer pledging to cut carbon emissions by at least 81%. This is compared to the 1990s. We spoke to our guest, Rupert Darwell. Look, this is at the COP29 summit, which pretty much no one else important went to because Trump's not there. Sorry, well, not obviously not president yet. Biden's not even there. Wouldn't know where Azerbaijan was anymore. I don't think either of them would, to be fair. The German leaders, the French leaders, people, the Indians, the Chinese. This is no longer the cool invite in town anymore. It's in an oil petro state.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the middle of nowhere. The one in Brazil next year. Yeah, people might go back to that because Brazil. But basically, he told this blatant out lie that we can hit our net zero targets and it's not going to involve us changing our lifestyles. And as we just spoke to Rupert Darwell half an hour ago, that's just not true. It's
not true. I want to also just add to that Azerbaijan is a country that stands accused of committing ethnic cleansing against Armenians in the very recent
surprise.
Times. And as you say, a petro-state, and the President Aliyev opened the ceremony by thanking God for the gifts of oil and gas, which has made his country relevant and means that it can get away with things like ethnic cleansing because people need to buy his oil and gas. It's a disgrace that we're there, frankly. But Besides the point, it is also a disgrace the way that we're managing energy production in this country. Let's be very clear here. Britain has the most expensive energy prices in the developed world, almost twice what they are in the United States. You want to know why things aren't happening in this country, why growth is stunted and why people are getting poorer? That's partly why. We have it in our power to be entirely energy self-sufficient if we use our natural resources, but we also have one of the world's leading nuclear power developing sectors in this country right now, which we're refusing to use. What we are doing is doubling down on technology, wind, which is massively subsidised, hugely inefficient. We're still doing it. We also are.
We've relied on wind before. That was before the Industrial Revolution, when we were all poor and died early.
Before the Industrial Revolution, that was the big thing in town, and then we found coal, and it all went fantastically well, and now we've decided to stop.
We had windmills. They were brilliant, weren't they? Until we came up with better fuels.
The other thing, of course, is solar power. Solar power has got very cheap and
just
very
looking
efficient.
out the window.
But we are, quite literally, along with Scandinavia, one of the worst placed countries in the world for utilising solar power, especially at this time of year. The fact that we are deciding to go down this route when we could have cheap, plentiful energy that we could use to bridge the gap to nuclear, and we're deciding not to do that and impoverish ourselves. It is a disgrace. These people are idiots.
It's immoral.
They have
immoral.
They have drunk the Kool-Aid, and honestly, I sit here and I feel pretty hopeless about the state. The next 5 years are going to be more of this. It is going to be wanton damage done to the economy of this country, whilst other countries soar ahead.
Instead, in 2019, we weren't given a choice. All the political parties were basically for these net zero targets, including Boris Johnson signed up to it. And at least in this last election, we actually had the option of a party. I mean, Reform was the only party that wasn't signed up to net zero. The Tories are going to have to get with the programme on this. This is not a policy that is going to survive another election.
No, it's not, because our economy will not survive, and that's the thing. You can believe in the fairy stories for as long as you want.
Some people physically won't survive as we get poorer and colder.
Right now, look at what's happening to Germany's economy. The German government has just collapsed, partly because of what's happening there, because they've done the same thing that we're doing.
Exactly.
It's so stupid.
I know. Again, but it's not just stupid. It won't work. It's not achievable. It's not desirable, and it's immoral. And forcing it on developing nations is
bad enough.
Is so beyond awful. I can't even tell you.